Welcome to the channel where history meets mind-blowing facts. Here your knowledge will get a powerful boost with every video. From hidden events to legendary figures, we cover it all. What if, in the early hours of June 6, 1944, the course of human history bent in a terrifying new direction? Picture this. The sky over Normandy is thick with storm clouds, harsher than expected. Visibility is near zero. The Allied Air Force, meant to soften up German defenses, is grounded. The paratroopers meant to land behind enemy lines scatter hopelessly across unfamiliar terrain. The entire D-Day invasion, the largest amphibious assault in history, collapses before it even begins. German forces, alerted early by broken Allied codes and strengthened by panzer reinforcements shifted from the Eastern Front, unleash a devastating counterattack. Thousands of Allied troops are massacred on the beaches. The world gasps, not in celebration of liberation, but in horror at the bloodbath that unfolds on the shores of France. Winston Churchill, once defiant and unshakable, now sits in stunned silence as news filters back to London. President Roosevelt, already weakened by the toll of war and age, faces mounting pressure at home to pull back. The American public, reeling from the massive casualties and the apparent futility of the war, begins to question the cost of intervention. Across the Atlantic, Hitler watches from his command center with a sinister grin. The gamble he made to fortify the Atlantic Wall, the resources he poured into defending Fortress Europe, they have paid off. The failure of D-Day is not just a military disaster for the Allies, it's a psychological collapse. The dream of liberating Europe is shattered. As Allied momentum crumbles, the ripple effect is immediate. Resistance movements across occupied Europe are silenced overnight. Gestapo crackdowns are merciless. French partisans are hunted down with brutal efficiency. In the East, the Soviet Union is left to bleed alone. Stalin's Red Army, once pushing hard against German lines, begins to falter. Without a Western front to divide German attention, Hitler throws his entire war machine at the Soviets. Operation Bagration, once poised to deal a decisive blow to the Wehrmacht, is met with overwhelming force. The German army, bolstered and refocused, claws back lost ground with a terrifying new aggression. Cities are reduced to ashes. Entire villages vanish overnight. The Eastern Front becomes a graveyard of steel and bone. In this twisted reality, the Axis powers sense a shift. Japan, emboldened by Germany's success, tightens its grip on the Pacific. Australia braces for invasion. India, under British rule, begins to fracture from within as Japanese forces stir rebellion. The world teeters on the edge of Axis domination. Neutral countries begin to reconsider their stance. Spain and Sweden, once cautious, open quiet diplomatic channels with Berlin. The Nazi regime, once seen as a temporary aberration, now looks like a permanent fixture in the global order. Back in Germany, the propaganda machine goes into overdrive. Goebbels crafts a narrative of divine destiny. Hitler as the man chosen to reshape the world. Massive rallies erupt across Berlin, Paris, and even Rome. The swastika flies high from the Eiffel Tower. German becomes mandatory in schools across occupied Europe. History is rewritten. The Holocaust, hidden under layers of lies and misinformation, continues in the shadows as the Reich expands its grip. Auschwitz isn't liberated. Its secrets remain buried. Millions vanish into camps that the world no longer sees. The U.S. Navy, battered and cautious, retreats deeper into the Atlantic. The idea of a second invasion, another D-Day, fades into distant fantasy. War production slows. American morale hits an all-time low. The Great Allied Alliance begins to fracture. Canada withdraws from the European front. Australia redirects its forces to its own defense. The British Isles become an island of paranoia, encircled and alone. Hitler, now turning 70, begins planning for a post-war world not marked by peace but by continued domination. He envisions a future where Germany's borders stretch from the Atlantic to the Ural Mountains, where Nazi science leads in rocketry, nuclear research, and even space exploration, where dissent is not debated but eliminated, where children pledge allegiance not to freedom, but to the Führer. In this world, culture, religion, and race are engineered. Art is censored, languages die, and people disappear. The United Nations never forms. The Cold War never begins, because there is no balance, only power consolidated under one iron hand. This is not just an alternate military outcome. This is a full collapse of the democratic experiment. A world where might makes right, and the moral compass of humanity is broken beyond recognition. And all of it, every horrifying inch of it, started with a stormy sky over Normandy and a single failed invasion. The year is 1950. Europe, once a continent of diverse nations and vibrant cultures, is now a patchwork of Nazi territories and puppet regimes. The swastika flutters over the ruins of former capitals. Paris has become a museum of conquered pride, where French art and literature are reinterpreted through Nazi ideology. Rome is reduced to a ceremonial ally, its fascist government nothing more than a mouthpiece for Berlin. London, after years of crippling air raids and internal sabotage, has finally capitulated. The British monarchy is in exile, the royal palaces, now occupied by high-ranking SS officials. A Nazi flag is projected nightly on the dome of St. Paul's Cathedral. Churchill, once the lion of resistance, is gone. His voice silenced, his legacy erased from textbooks rewritten by the Ministry of Truth in Berlin. Across Europe, borders are redrawn not by culture or history, but by efficiency. The entire continent is divided into Reichsgaus, administrative zones ruled by Nazi governors who report directly to the Führer. German is the official language. Local dialects and traditions are suppressed, rebranded as primitive or degenerate. Children are taught that their heritage is not their own, but a branch of the superior Aryan tree. Every classroom opens with a salute to Hitler. Science, art, and education are filtered through the lens of racial purity and loyalty to the Reich. Mathematics is not just numbers but a tool to measure racial genetics. Biology becomes eugenics. History starts and ends with Germany's destiny. In this new world order, the SS doesn't just operate in the shadows, it becomes the law. It replaces traditional police forces, military structures, even civil governance. With black uniforms and a rigid code of loyalty, the SS oversees everything from transportation to population control. Cities are monitored by ever-present surveillance and every neighborhood has its informants. Citizens are encouraged to report on their neighbors, their friends, even their own families. Suspicion becomes survival. One whisper of dissent can lead to disappearance. People vanish in the night, their names erased, their homes reassigned, their memories intentionally forgotten. The Nazi economy thrives on stolen wealth and slave labor. Massive infrastructure projects, autobahns that stretch from Berlin to Moscow. Factories churning out weapons, aircraft, and vehicles are powered by millions forced into labor. Jews, Slavs, Roma, and political prisoners work until they collapse, their lives traded for bricks and steel. The Holocaust never stopped. It only evolved. With no Allied forces to liberate the camps, the extermination continues silently behind high walls and barbed wire. Entire populations are erased from the European landscape, replaced by German settlers in vast colonization projects meant to permanently transform the East into the living space Hitler long dreamed of. Technology accelerates under Nazi control, but only in directions that serve the state. Rocket science, led by figures like Werner von Braun, advances rapidly. V-2 rockets become prototypes for intercontinental weapons. Plans for space exploration are drafted, not to inspire humanity, but to showcase the supremacy of the Reich. Nuclear weapons, once an Allied goal, are now in the hands of the Nazis. Cities live in fear not of liberation, Imagine waking up in a world where every corner of life is watched, regulated, and shaped by a regime that defines your worth by your bloodline. The streets are clean, the buildings tall and efficient, and technology has advanced rapidly, but the price of this so-called progress is soul-crushing. The Reich now spans continents, and life under its iron grip is orderly on the surface, but beneath it, the air is thick with fear. Every conversation, every look over the shoulder carries weight. You are taught to speak a certain way, think a certain way, and above all, never question. Because to question is to disappear. In this world, cities that once symbolized freedom and culture have become unrecognizable. Paris is no longer a city of love or art. It's a sterile metropolis lined with gray buildings, Nazi banners hanging from the Eiffel Tower, and loudspeakers blaring daily propaganda. Berlin, the capital of the New World, has transformed into a dystopian megacity known as Germania, a monstrous architectural project of concrete columns and surveillance. Cameras are installed in every hallway, every lamppost, every home. Children are raised not by their parents, but by the state. Trained from birth to be perfect tools of the regime, they don't learn about democracy or human rights. They memorize Hitler's speeches. They chant oaths of allegiance in the morning before classes begin. People live double lives. On the surface, they smile, they attend state parades, they salute. But in their hearts, many are hollow. Trust no longer exists even among family. A child may report their parents for saying something disloyal. A neighbor might whisper your name to the authorities just to gain favor or out of sheer fear. And once your name is recorded, your fate is sealed. A knock on the door at midnight. A black car waiting outside. You are taken without explanation. No trial, no charges. Your name vanishes from the registry. Your apartment is reassigned the next morning as if you never existed. Minority groups, if any still exist in hiding, live in constant terror. Jews, Roma, and other so-called undesirables were driven to the edge of extinction years ago. Those who remain are forced into secret ghettos, labor camps, or worse. The Holocaust, never exposed to the world, continues silently. No Allied soldiers came to open the gates. No survivors lived to tell the truth. The gas chambers kept running, their smokestacks hidden behind forests and fences. What's worse is that entire generations have been brainwashed to believe those people never existed in the first place. Technology, once a symbol of progress and creativity, is now a tool of oppression. Artificial intelligence, developed under strict Nazi oversight, is designed not to serve humanity, but to control it. Facial recognition systems ensure everyone stays in their assigned zones. Drones monitor behavior from the skies. Every device, every piece of communication is monitored in real time. You can't send a letter without it being read. You can't whisper without the fear of someone listening. The Internet is a closed network called the Reichnet, filled only with approved content. History that glorifies Hitler, music that praises war, and games designed to reward obedience and punish dissent. Art, once a reflection of human emotion and rebellion, is now hollow and mechanical. Only state-approved themes are allowed. Paintings must show strength, purity, dominance. Music must follow traditional Germanic melodies. Band or jazz, blues, or anything with foreign roots. Literature is propaganda. Poetry is extinct. Creative minds are silenced or converted into tools for the regime. The greatest artists of the world either fled, died in obscurity, or were captured and forced to produce art that praised their captors. The colors of culture have been drained and replaced by grayscale obedience. Religion, too, has been reshaped. Christianity has been twisted to portray Hitler as a divine messenger, anointed by fate to lead the world into a new age. Churches that resisted were demolished. Priests who spoke out were executed. A new religion, a fusion of Nazi mythology and pseudoscience, fills the spiritual void. The masses are taught that the Aryan race is the chosen one, descended from ancient gods. Rituals and holidays now revolve around Hitler's birth, his victories, his ideology. Spirituality is not personal anymore. It is programmed, enforced, and ritualized. And for those who dare to dream of escape, there is nowhere left to run. Borders are sealed. The Reich's influence extends globally through puppet governments, collaborators, and fear. Even across the seas, in places like South America or the Middle East, resistance is choked before it even starts. Surveillance. Satellites orbit the Earth, tracking movement, analyzing patterns. The world is blanketed by control. Hope is not just rare. It's dangerous. In the shadows of the seemingly invincible Nazi empire, a spark flickers. It's faint. So faint that most don't notice it. But it's there, quietly burning in the hearts of those who remember a different world. A world where people were free to speak their minds, to love who they chose, to believe in something other than iron fists and bloodlines. Decades after Hitler's victory, the world feels like a prison with no walls. An open-air regime where everyone is watched, but no one can look back. And yet, even in this dystopia, rebellion finds a way. It begins in whispers, in hidden rooms. Beneath the streets of Lisbon, a group of scholars and ex-soldiers secretly rewrite history books, preserving the truth that has been scrubbed from every library and school. In the icy woods of Finland, young men and women pass along band music, American jazz, old British rock, lyrics that speak of freedom, rhythm that defies the mechanical pulse of Nazi marches. In Buenos Aires, graffiti appears overnight. Symbols, slogans, names of those erased by the regime. They vanish by morning, but they always come back. Each act of rebellion is small, almost insignificant on its own. But together, they form the roots of something much larger. Underground networks begin to grow. Exiled scientists, disillusioned officers, rogue hackers. They come together in secret corners of the world, from the bunkers of Alaska to the forgotten tunnels beneath Berlin. They build devices that jam Reichnet signals. They intercept Nazi communications and leak them to forbidden news networks. They create software that can bypass facial recognition and scramble digital footprints. In a world where every second is monitored, they learn how to move like ghosts. These resistance fighters are not soldiers in the traditional sense. They are poets, coders, teachers, street artists. Their weapons are not guns and tanks, but knowledge, information, hope. They spread stories, true stories, of how the world once was. They remind the oppressed that the regime is not immortal, that even empires that stretch across continents can crumble when people remember who they are. Every act of rebellion is dangerous. Every message sent, every secret meeting could mean execution, but they keep going. Because they know one thing: fear only wins when silence becomes permanent. The Reich responds with fury. Entire districts are purged. Cities go dark for days as the SS hunt for dissenters. New surveillance tech is rolled out. Drones with AI, targeting predictive behavior algorithms, neural implants to monitor thought patterns. And yet resistance grows stronger. Because with every crackdown, more people begin to ask, why is the regime so afraid of ideas? Why do they work so hard? To silence voices if their system is truly perfect? In the Eastern Territories, former Soviet lands boil beneath the surface. Generations of brutality have bred not submission, but resolve. Rebel cells trained in the mountains of Georgia and the forests of Ukraine carry out precise sabotage missions. Railways destroyed, Nazi officials eliminated, propaganda towers toppled overnight. In Western Europe, the grandchildren of those who once resisted in World War II find themselves walking the same path as their ancestors. In Spain, in Norway, in Ireland, flash. Mobs gather, chanting banned songs before dispersing in seconds. Digital resistance spills into real life. The Reich begins to tremble, not from bombs,